Recording in progress.
For Monday, March 20th, 2023, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Will you please join me in the pledges of allegiance? Stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Welcome. Don't get up very long and go get something to eat or get an adult beverage because we're not going to be here long. We got a pretty short agenda tonight. With that, Elise, will you call roll, please?
Councilmember Hatfield?
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard? Here. Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Graf?
Here.
Mayor Winchell?
Yes. All right. Moves to item 4, adopting the agenda. Are there corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hatfield to adopt the agenda. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to 5, visitor presentation. And tonight we're going to get a little update on Highway 41, what's going to happen here as we move into the construction season. And we're actually going to have construction starting a week from tonight. Right? Yeah.
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 Well,
week
the
from-
27th.
Yeah, week from today, so.
So Lisa's going to give us a little presentation update on that. We thought because we're going to be starting before the next council meeting, that we'd get you up to speed on sort of where things are at with outreach updates and construction phasing and all that kind of stuff. So that not only you guys, but anybody who's watching at home can get a good sense of what to expect. So
Okay.
turn over to Elise.
All right, Mayor and council members, yeah, as Matt mentioned, we'll just give you a brief update. We can talk, more about the phasing if you have questions, but the majority of my focus was going to be on some of the outreach that's going on, and what we have been doing and what we plan to do continuing to move forward. So, big news, construction begins next Monday, and it'll start with that green dot. Highway 61 Walnut Street intersection will be closed. And this, as it shows on there, will be closed about 2 to 3 weeks. Soon after that, Highway 61 will also be closed right there, kind of in front of where Dolce Vita is at. You won't be able to, turn onto 61 from there, from 41. For that, actually for quite a long period of the actual project itself as we continue to work through there.
So that, that's a stage 2, okay.
Yeah, yep. And so the rest of the timing then follows based upon this work that's done here. So the 61 Walnut Street intersection has to be completed before we can kind of move on with anything else, because we have to allow that traffic to be able to flow north and south on Walnut Street to be able to get through. So as we, kind of go through the phases, and as phase, one closure shift and that sort of thing, we'll let you know as well as the public, but some of that is just dependent on how long some of this work takes. We generally know, Highway, 41, kind of from 61 to 4th Street will close, sometime mid-April, mid to late April. The entire thing will close sometime in May. Those dates aren't completely nailed down exactly, like May 15th, this will close. We don't know that specificity yet. So wanted to kind of go through just generally what some of our outreach efforts have been. And I've focused probably more on businesses than I have residents in this particular presentation. But a lot of these things certainly, apply to the residents in the downtown area. So recently, as we talked about at the last council meeting, we had a couple of open houses held on March 2nd and March 9th. The March 2nd one was really kind of geared toward businesses only, and we probably had 7 or 8 different businesses attend, some of whom we haven't had contact with in the past, so engaging with new folks. And then the general public open house was held March 9th, and I know some of you were in attendance. We probably had 50 to 75 folks attend. It was a good steady stream despite the weather and the snow that was happening that night. Lots of great questions being asked. Additional outreach efforts is the next to the walkarounds to the businesses and individual on-site meetings with businesses and apartments are probably kind of the 2 most time-consuming, yet probably most beneficial, where we're able to really kind of communicate a lot. So between myself and Greg Weber at Bolton and Mank, we have been, talking with different businesses, as well as trying to hit up some of the apartments like the Landing and the Zen, who are particularly impacted with this project, and just have conversations with them about what's going on, what's coming up next, here's what to expect. And so some of that is happening again this week. Greg is making a particular effort, as we had a newsletter go out, 2 newsletters in fact go out in the past week, really stopping in and connecting with those businesses. Additionally, we've done a couple of business surveys. So we started this last summer and have kind of revived it again this spring here, really. And again, this is focusing on the businesses. We want to know their hours of operation. When do they get deliveries? How big are the trucks they get deliveries from? Trash and recycling pickup, how often, so that we can help coordinate some of those logistic issues that sometimes get left behind and fall through the cracks. So if for any businesses who may be watching, if you haven't had a chance to take that survey, you can go on the website and take that survey. Additionally, as I mentioned, we've done mailed newsletters to property owners and tenants as well, making sure that we're hitting both those groups. So as we found, some of our communication in the past has been directed to property owners, but that doesn't always mean it makes it to the tenants, as we found out. So we're really now making that concerted effort that any messaging goes to both the property owners and the tenants. Additionally, and Councilmember Hatfield and Councilmember Wan have been attending the monthly Chaska Downtown Business Association meetings. They are being held here at City Hall in the council chambers, second Friday of every month at 7:30 in the morning. And we are, the Business Alliance themselves they are available via Zoom, which is one of the reasons why we're doing it here versus at a business per se. And they are being recorded, and those recordings are being sent out to the folks that are on that mail list. So if they can't make it, as we know, some businesses can't, they can go back and watch that. Additionally, just kind of, as you've seen different, community and pop-up events, we're trying to, get involved with those. In particular, I mentioned Coffee with a Cup. That happened just recently. They will be a part of the Senior Expo here in a few weeks. Last year, they were at the Farmers Market, Taste of Chaska, River City Days. We've had presence at all of those, and we'll continue to have presence at those into this next year. And then weekly e-newsletters go out. So this is, we've been encouraging folks to sign up for these weekly e-newsletters. They are done by Bolton and Mank. However, city staff reviews them before they go out. And basically what they do, if you haven't seen them, is recap what happened that past week and then what will be happening the next week going forward. And then if there's any particular dates people should be aware of too into the future on that. So take a look at those and sign up if you're not already signed up.
Quick question. The Business Alliance, is it possible to get communication that they send out? Or is that?
Certainly, yeah, we can add you to the mail
Okay.
list. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice, because I know, obviously, with,
Elise put me on there too.
with open meeting law and everything like that, obviously, I don't, don't want to interrupt and be here here present, but it'd be nice just to see what communication's being spread.
Well, it'd be nice if there's something going on that we got a heads up and we don't get a phone call in the meantime that, and at least, you know.
I would say it's mostly a duplicate of what already goes out, with the exception of like new meetings, but.
Well, we can certainly get you added and.
You should probably just put the whole council.
Yeah, I'll put the whole council on there, make sure everybody's added. All right, I wanted to talk about, so those were the things that have happened. And just talk about some of the comments that we're hearing as we move forward. So parking is a big issue and a really sensitive issue. One of the newsletter that went out last week from the city talked about, the no parking that we'll be imposing on Pine and Walnut in particular. And it also points to, the different city lots that'll be available. People are concerned about initially starting with the parking so restrictive and how that will impact, businesses. The reason why we plan to start restrictive is because it's easier to ease up those restrictions than to start with having that and then trying to put restrictions in if we find there's safety issues and whatnot.
Because I kind of wondered that. I thought, maybe there's a way that we could park one side or something,
I think we anticipate that there will be, unless you see like just gobs of traffic coming down, then you'd probably find people don't even want to try to park on that area.
But most of those areas there are pretty wide streets, so you're pretty, fairly safe there.
And I think that's certainly the benefit of actually having the project in our backyard is we'll be able to kind of watch what's happening on a daily basis. And as we've told businesses and other folks, please let us know if you see something happening or you see that it seems like it's available for parking and whatnot. So,
Yeah, Elise, Nate, Matt, and myself all have windows looking out onto Pine in our office, so if something's happening, we'll see it real quick.
Additionally, some concerns we've heard is, we have, some city-owned parking lots here in downtown that are used for residential purposes, and that's fine, our ordinance allows it. However, they do have to move every 24 hours. Now, because we haven't had a big demand in parking in those lots in particular, we haven't necessarily been proactively enforcing that ordinance. We have let folks know that because of the anticipated demand needed with those lots moving forward, that starting May 1st, we will start to actively enforce that. So we've given people kind of that grace period to let them know that this is coming, but we will be enforcing it.
A lot of this is people like putting a boat in a spot or putting a car that they don't use in a spot.
Yeah.
And just eating that up.
Other comments that we've heard pertain to signage, in particular temporary signage, especially if, their business, faces 41. At 41, and I'm thinking in particular, the businesses between 2nd and 3rd on the east side. Really, they're directly on 41. They don't have great, rear entrances. You don't know who's back there. So something that we've talked about, and I'll talk about it a little bit more coming up, is just allowing some changes in those temporary sign ordinances. Other comments that we've heard is, concern about how people, access the businesses. Not only how do their customers get down, how do they park, how do they walk from where they park to the business? That's of concern, but then also access the businesses when there might be a closure in front of their business. Like the sidewalk has to close at some point in time. Okay, so then how do we get customers there? So that's some comments that we've heard. Just overall timing of construction closures, like everybody else, want to know when those are going to happen. Truck traffic is a concern. We've heard that, in particular from residents, concern about dump trucks and gravel trucks on Pine and Walnut and that sort of thing. concern from some of our businesses about how their delivery trucks will be able to make deliveries. And then we've heard from businesses concerned about, financial assistance and if there's any financial assistance to help them get through. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of the city efforts that we're doing, which then a lot of this relates back to the comments that we've heard in particular. So we continue to do individual meetings with businesses and residents as they request. Both the city and Bolton and Mink, Greg Weber in particular, will continue, meeting with businesses. Not only just walking around and just popping in and seeing how things are going, but then if they want to schedule something in particular. In particular, regard to the parking, we talked a little bit about that proactive enforcement of the city code in those city-owned lots, but then coordinating our construction signage to be able to get people to those city lots. So big orange signs that go up on the roadways, here's where you park, that sort of thing. And there's a whole signage plan if you're interested, but that's, where those will all go. Signage, about temporary signage. So our code right now calls for temporary signage such as sandwich board to be placed directly in front of a business. Now, for some of our businesses, that front 41, that won't make any sort of impact for them. So we've talked about allowing some flexibility in our ordinance to place that temporary signage along Pine and Walnut to help direct people in. Here's our business. We're in this area. Come visit us. Since those will kind of be the main north-south routes through downtown. And I know I had a follow-up by one of our residents who lives on Pine. They were concerned, they live on the west side of Pine, so not where the signage may go, but they were concerned about signage ending up in their yard. And so we've talked about, where that signage can go. Additionally, we've talked about, so we have, a grant program to help with signage. So allowing that grant program to be expanded, so to help these businesses buy some of these sandwich boards. Additionally, efforts to connect businesses to resources. The Business Alliance does that. We've been doing that, in particular, Next Stage, which is a free business assistance for businesses can kind of talk through some of the business plans, what to expect, that sort of thing. And then Orange Ball, that's been in particular promoted by the Business Alliance. Additionally, we've talked about or Bolton and Mink will help to make customized maps for business access. What they plan to do is be able to pinpoint that business on a map and then show how people can get there, where they might, be able to park, if there's a city lot close by, if there's on-street parking available. And that business can take it, put it on their social media, can, hand out flyers for their customers coming in, that sort of thing. So that's available for businesses. Additionally, we're willing and have worked in some cases for just customized solutions for the businesses. We had one in particular, just looking at alternative spaces where a business might be able to temporarily locate. In particular, it had to do with the sheet piling and what that might look like. So they didn't ultimately take us up on that particular offer, but it's thinking through those opportunities with them to be able to help them continue to operate. Another one we had just recently was, hey, if you're gonna close the parking on the street in front of my business, can I put some, kind of pop-up tables and chairs for my restaurant and be able to expand that patio area where people can eat outside? So it's things like that. Additionally, a couple weeks ago, I think I mentioned the rear entrance guidelines and changes to the storefront improvement program to assist financially on, changing up that rear entrance to help people get in. So that's another city effort. You'll see some changes to that storefront improvement loan program coming up shortly. Additionally, we'll continue that weekly door knocking for project updates and closures. projects updates to businesses. More notices prior to highway closures. So again, we had, direct notices mailed out both by the city and Bolton and Mink about the upcoming restrictions and construction going out. We anticipate more of those going out, just to keep people informed if they're not on the website or they don't, use social media, that sort of thing. Continuing with the project website updates, something we reviewed just today was just what would be an 11 by 17 poster that businesses can hang up in their storefront with a QR code, hotline, phone number, email, that sort of thing, that as their visitors and customers come in, just more information they can provide to them. The Business Alliance has some plans for summer marketing, so we continue to work with them to help implement that. And then you'll see some promo videos coming out for project outreach as well. That'll be hitting social media coming up shortly. And so it's 3 short videos, about a minute or less. The first one is just kind of an overview of what's happening with the project. The second one focuses on like the paseos and the parking, and the third one talks about just timing of the roadway project. So look for those, feel free to share those. So that was a whole lot of information, but wanted to be able to provide you with what we're doing and if you have particular feedback for us as we move forward. And I would just note that this is all, flexible is maybe not the right word, but we will continue to adjust and change and add things to this list as we, get started. And if we find something doesn't work or we find something works, we'll continue to change as needed.
I think the only comment I'd make is that, this is really, really good stuff, and there's a lot of good work that Elise and Bolton and Mank and the team has been doing out there, and Chaska Downtown Business Alliance has been really supportive of doing it as much as they can to really help support the businesses. The one thing that this kind of doesn't cover, we've talked about a little bit, is that there's like 5 different 41 projects going on in Chaska. So sometimes we forget that this is not the only thing going on in Chaska, because in addition to this, south of this, there's also the one we talked about in the last meeting, which was the recycling center. And so that one will close at the same time the bridge closes. But it's good to know that that's still happening there. So someone coming from the south trying to reach Chaska will see that, and they'll see the bridge closure. Going to the north, there's also 2 additional projects, which are the PV Road roundabout, which is part of the Costco project, which will result in closures for, I think, in 90 days is what they're pinning on the map, just to make sure that everything's tied up there, just in case they need to use that. Hopefully not. And then there's also the road reconstruction that's happening from, PV Road, or that, or I guess it's officially Pioneer Trail to 82nd Street. So that resurfacing that's happening, it's also a MnDOT project, and that's also taking place. And then there's also the study that's happening for County Road 10 and 41, and that's a study, so there's no construction with that. And then there's also some other projects that are happening that are ancillary to it. So there's a lot going on this summer, but I wanted to put that out there because it's easy for people to get confused and say, oh, I couldn't make it to this meeting, so I'll go to the other one instead, not realizing they're completely different projects. And because, I think from a community perspective, individual residents may not realize that there's multiple projects, or may see projects in their area that they are impacted by, but not realize that there's other projects that they're not as impacted by, depending upon where they are in the community.
And that's something something we talked about internally today. Kevin and myself and Alex Molenkamp, our assistant city engineer, we all met to talk about how do we help people understand that there's a lot of projects going on, they are all not the same project, and they're all being led. So we came up with some ideas on how we can put this on the website, get information out, and if people don't have access to the website, or they prefer to get it in a different way, looking at that. So Kevin will be doing some of that work here coming up, and when we have it up and ready, we'll let you all know. But it's being able to distinguish on a map what project is what, and then have it be able to provide just a little general information about the project on our site, and then connect it to the actual project website, so that we're not having to keep everything up to date, but at least be able to help people connect to where they need to go.
Just kind of an update on that. Kevin and I just did a little video that was talked about a little bit, not into any big detail because we try to keep the video short. But I just finished the Neighbors of Chaska magazine that was detailed in there about the multiple projects. And I'm in the process of sending an article to the Herald that will have the same, talking about the multiple projects so that they make sure that, even Kevin reminded me when I talked about Highway 41 to say the downtown side of it. So it's easy to lose these projects when you say 41. You might be thinking here and it's up near Chanhassen. So, yes, and there, but so, we're gonna do a lot, and then Kevin and I are doing, monthly, and if not, if we need to do them more often, so we're gonna talk a lot about just the general of what's happening on 41 as much as we possibly can, just to hit another audience, so.
I was just going to ask regarding the streets where traffic will be routed to. Obviously, this has been a tough winter for potholes and constructions. I'm not going to admit I haven't driven every one of those roads. Is there a plan to kind of get them ready for that extra traffic and as much as possible? I just worry, it's been a tough year for that, and then you're going to put a lot more traffic that's on there. Or are they in good, do we feel like they're good condition, they've survived winter
Nope.
so far?
Mine right over here is bad.
Yeah.
So is there a plan to like try to fill them in? I mean, it's
Yeah,
hard right now, it's just hard.
I
It's
think
probably
we-
easier to just do a partial overlay than it is to patch it.
Yeah, I know we're gonna do some work to get it ready. I mean, the one thing I would fully expect at the end of this project, as bad as Pine Street is now, it's gonna be worse.
Oh, well,
And so, I mean, that's one that you can expect is probably on the next round of reconstructions, cause it's gonna get beat up this summer real bad.
I was just curious, because yeah, even on, when that's gonna get ripped up regardless, I don't patch that, but like, Main Street.
Well, there'll be a
I
partial
mean, it's just,
piece of Walnut
you're
Street.
just kind of weaving, I mean, it's just like, wow, like, my tire might fall in there and not come out. So, okay. Well, I mean, like I said, and that's expected, and it's good that we know we're not pretending that
We're
that's the
in,
reality of
let's put it this way, we're in better shape than St. Paul.
it. True. It's all relative to.
Right now,
We're not seeing, you're not seeing the old cobble streets underneath and like some of those potholes?
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't know what we could see in our potholes, you never know.
dirt.
Okay.
All right, anything else for Elise? Good job.
Yeah, I just wanna,
how's this?
Elise has been doing an outstanding job of not just sort of the overall, I mean, she is the one who is going down and meeting with each one of these businesses. I mean, she has been hard at work doing that, so huge kudos to her.
I'm sure every one of them has been just happy to see you,
Always.
always.
People are always a lot more happy to see her than me, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go there.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that, just thank the time and effort involved in doing this, as a storefront business owner, I empathize with the impact, it's more than just, hey, you're gonna have some down numbers, it's overhead, I mean, that's staff, there's a lot of, unknowns in there, but, you're lessening the blow to that, and you guys are trying to come up with a lot of creative solutions to really lessen the severity that maybe isn't gonna be there, but, also might be impactful. So I think it's good to get in front of it and be strategic and come up with solutions rather than to be 5 steps behind and you can't really catch up until it's all over. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up because it's just like, it's really easy to say, oh, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, it's gonna hurt for a little while and then it's gonna be over, but, there are salaries and, bills and people's livelihoods, the dreams that they've built as a small business owner. And so I just want to recognize that and just also thank the business community for sticking it out. I know it's really it can be really, yeah, stressful and hard, and you got a lot of things you're juggling as a small business owner, a lot of hats to wear, and, you know, and then you have kind of to navigate this, but, you know, do it with courage and, you know, go get 'em attitude, and I think everybody's gonna be better on the other side of it, hopefully, and it'll be great. So, but just wanted to recognize that.
And the one thing we'll continue to do during this summer is just remind our residents to come down here. I mean, there's always gonna be a way to get to businesses into downtown. It might not be the normal way that they go, but there's always gonna be a way to get to businesses. So just encouraging people to just make an extra effort to think, you know, if I could go down here instead of somewhere else,
Yep.
make that choice.
I think that's wonderful.
And I'll also echo, Matt, your comment too, that, you know, I've been in a lot of meetings with Elise the past few weeks. And she's been phenomenal to work with, and she's been really supportive of the businesses and really gone out of her way to really work with, you know, individual business owners and make sure that, you know, we're doing all that we can to, you know, demonstrate that, you know, we're supporting our businesses, our community, and our residents, you know, as much as we absolutely can. So, you know, thank you for all the work that you're doing, continue to do, and for all the work you'll be doing this summer.
Yeah, I think it's just been important that we've included the businesses and hopefully we're not getting any of that, well, I didn't know type thing. I think we got some early and I think you got to those right away and were able to realize that owners and tenants weren't always sharing the same information. So I think that that's important that we're doing that and that we're making every effort possible. It's not easing it, but the fact that they know what's happening, I think it helps them understand and, you know, to your point, you know, if they know that this is gonna be a bad week, maybe they can, you know, not bring as much staff in or however it works or, you know, but, it's important that they at least know what's happening and when and how long with any luck, so, that's important, so thanks for all you're doing with that. All right, anything else for Elise? All right. Kevin, anybody on for visitor presentation?
No, I don't see anyone on there for visitor presentation.
Okay, with that, then I'm looking for approval of the previous meeting minutes of March 6, 2023. There are no corrections, additions. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Brock,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hubbard to approve previous meeting minutes. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Excuse me, motion carries. Who's it, item 7, which is consent items. Again, these are items that need our approval, but not necessarily a conversation, but any or all can be brought forward and discussed at any point if any council members have a concern or a question.
I have a question, more of a curiosity. The funds from the police auction, where do those go? Like, what happens to the fund? I'm just more curious than anything. So we have stuff that doesn't get claimed, we sell it, people pay for it. Like, where does that fund end up? Is it?
It goes back into supporting police programming.
I mean, I assume that was the case,
Yeah.
but I was curious, and I think it's, you know, sometimes I feel like if I ask the question, someone else probably has the question.
You know,
Is that where, I mean, they can buy the bicycle helmets to
Yeah,
resell
yeah.
and stuff like that?
You know, it's one of the things that, you know, we get a pretty good sense each year about, you know, what we generate from that, what we get from forfeitures, things like that, but we never budget the numbers towards specific programs. Because it's something you hope you don't have to do at all. But each year, it's pretty consistent as far as how much we actually generate from that, from forfeitures, things like that. But they do go to support those types of programs.
Okay. All right. I'd just like to bring up one that's in here as well. At our last council meeting, we did Matt's annual review. I just want to talk a little bit about how the council, council's very happy with Matt's performance, proud of the work that he's done and continues to do. He's led us through a lot of turmoil over the last few years, COVID and shutdowns and a lot of different things that we went through, and now we're in the middle of this building program, and we've selected that architect already. So there's been a lot of things happening, and I just wanted to bring that up to say that as a council, and please anyone chime in wherever, that we're very happy with your performance, the things that you do, that you continue to do. Always that worry about is there enough work-life balance? Because there's a lot of things always happening and churning, so, but like I said, otherwise, the review went great. Everybody's happy with what you're doing, and hope that continues as we move into the future. And that if anyone wants to chime in, you're more than happy to. If you don't, that's fine as well.
Great job, Matt.
Thanks.
Thank you, and, we're glad that you're here with us, so appreciate everything you do.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. This is a great city to work for, so I really enjoy it, and just appreciate the support you guys give of myself and the staff, just to go out there and accomplish some stuff in the community that hopefully makes it better, so thank you.
Never a dull moment around here, is it?
Nope. I've told every person who's come into the assistant role, I said, you don't ever have to worry about, is there something to do tomorrow? Am I right?
Oh, yes.
You're looking for that day you can come in and go,
I'm so bored.
Yeah, doesn't
take a
happen.
breath and look around, smell the roses. But, yeah. All right, anyone else have any comments, questions, concerns regarding consent? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve consent.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hubbard to approve consent. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. Next, we move to action item. Oh, we have no action items tonight. That's what's gonna make the meeting short, folks.
Somebody's really lucky tonight.
Yeah. First one, and you gotta get out that early.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
we're setting her up, because then she's gonna think they're all like this.
Yeah.
All right, moves us to 9 bills. Anyone have a question?
I have 3 questions. I'll try to keep it short. Page 4, there's an item for Sure Partners Capital. It says on the comment, it says 2023 agency for something, and then it's cut off. What is an agency fee for?
So the agency fees for our property and liability insurance coverage, so the name of this company used to be Casualty Assurance. And we're required through the League of Minnesota Cities, even though we're self-insured, to have an agent. And so that's our agency fee then for them to be our agent for our insurance.
Okay, got it. Page 7, there is an item for Compass Minerals America, 2 for road salt. And the question isn't specifically about the road salt, but it's about this winter. And it kind of just was jogging my thoughts around this. And so how much, because this winter is kind of unusual in terms of volume of, snow and, cleaning that we'd have to do. So how much does that impact our cost of salting and for like staff overtime, for example? Because I know that Minneapolis, they're looking at, raising taxes to cover the cost of potholes and that sort of things. But for us, I gotta think there's a fiscal impact. And what do we think it's gonna be in terms of those
Yeah,
things?
it's not as much as you might think it is. Brian was out today, but I did talk with Scott Salkin a little bit about this to sort of look at where we're at. Right now, we're at or just exceeding our quota, which is 80% of what we ordered for the year for use of salt. So theoretically, we should be pretty good on material to actually lay on the road if we end up, hopefully now if it's snow, it's like melt on contact. But we're actually doing okay on material. On overtime, we're probably about 10% over. But last year was a tough, difficult year to compare it to because we just didn't have as much activity last year as we did this year. So we're generally not too bad, and part of that is the way that they sort of structure the plows, where, you know, they'll come in at, 2 in the morning, and then, you know, they'll do like an 8-hour shift, and, you know, if the snowstorm works out right, they can usually do that and then not have to put in the overtime, and then they come back later to, the next evening to actually clean it out. We've had a few snowstorms, at least a couple this year, where it's been just like, hasn't stopped for like 2 days. And that's been a little different, and that's where we started to see some of the overtime. But when we have like a normal snowfall, it's not as much overtime as you'd think it would be. So, yeah, so I generally say we're pretty good with materials, probably, you know, in that 10% range on overtime above.
So when you say we're good with materials, you say that we're kind of in our planned budget for materials. Okay, and then for the overtime, maybe a little bit, but, you know, not anything that we, you know, just some of the contingency funds couldn't, you know, would take care of.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to get, you know, we're definitely gonna have a lot more cold mix and pothole mix this year than we typically would, because, you know, one of the challenges is that the ground never really got that cold, and so some of the edges of our roads have gotten a little bit more chewed up from the plows than they normally would. And so there's gonna definitely be a lot more patching this year than there's been in the past. But that crew is really creative on how to sort of stretch things to get things to work. So right now, they're feeling pretty good about where we stand. But, you know, we just got done talking about it. We might have a lot more work that we end up having to do on Pine and Walnut Streets this year. Not as much Walnut, because a lot of that's been reconstructed.
Just really one block.
Yeah, it's really just the block in front of City Square that's really the issue there. Pine Street's a different story. Pine Street, we may end up having to put a lot more work into that this summer than what we normally would. I would view that as a project cost, though, and not necessarily sort of our general operations that we'd have.
So maybe, you know, take care of that in a different way.
Take care of that as far as the overall total project costs that go towards the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. And then the last question I have is that on page 23, there was some, one of the items was for Zygent Solutions, and the item was the backup solution. It was a pretty, you know, big chunk there. It was like 54,000. And so the question I have is that, you know, my day job's in the IT world, and one of the things I see more often than not is that, you know, companies do due diligence, you know, they do their backups, but they never test their backups. So they have these backups that are in place, and then sometimes when they say, oh, I'll just restore off the backups don't work, they're not there, they're corrupted, you know, that sort of thing, which isn't good because for whatever reason their backup system or their processes failed and they just weren't robust in terms of exercising them to make sure that, yeah, they actually do work and we can actually use them when the need arises. And so my question is really, you know, kind of goes back to, like, you know, we use like we use a SaaS, right? That's a software as a service for a lot of the ERP that we have here. But, you know, how does that backup structure around that? So in this case, there's a backup solution. Is that for the desktops? Is it for our local servers? What does that actually cover? And then the deeper question is that how do we actually provide business continuity against, so is it through a high availability? Is it through some other, you know, how do we know that the backups that our SaaS provider is presumably keeping actually operate and work, right? Should something happen. So, I mean, there's a few questions kind of all laid within that.
So because I'm not going to pretend to know what this is, I'm going to read exactly what the IT people said because they know what they're talking about. So,
The word redundancy is somewhere in this statement.
What's that?
I said I hope the word redundancy
Redundancy,
is somewhere
yeah.
in this statement.
Well, first of all, as far
sure it will be.
as the invoice itself for actually what we're paying for, they said this is a cost of the backup solution as part of the one-time cost as the city transitions to a new backup solution using current backup and disaster recovery solution strategies to protect against ransomware and disaster scenarios. The MAR recovery SVC invoice will be going away once the new backup solution is fully implemented. This new backup solution will invoice annually and will reduce total annual cost to the city. So you had asked a few questions. First one, we do a yearly disaster recovery backup simulation test to test our backup and simulate a site down scenario. All of our systems have a HA or high availability enabled and are redundant. There you go, redundant. Our cloud-based ERP solutions maintains operational status, including data recovery, and has a service level agreement to provide secondary data center relocation. So right now, our data center is out in I think Connecticut. They have a secondary data center down in Texas. And after a 24-hour outage at the primary, it's in Massachusetts. After a 24-hour outage there, then it would switch over to the Texas data center. And then our backup solution covers our complete virtual environment with immutable backups and offsite replication of our complete environment to protect against disaster of our data center. We do not back up desktops as no data is stored locally on city computers. All city data is stored in the Microsoft Government Cloud. We have both OneDrive and SharePoint, which is backed up by both the city and Microsoft.
Okay, good.
So what you're saying is, you don't take a hard drive home and put it,
We don't have hard drives.
in your garage or something.
I mean, it's
like
been
that.
one of the reasons we've been able to go to,
In your fire- in
we
your
take
fire
floppy
safe.
disks.
yeah. I mean, we used to have the real deal at our, now this is all we have. So we have this and then, usually we'll have just a monitor we plug into behind just to have a bigger screen. But yeah, since we've gone to the cloud, it's made life a lot simpler even from a user perspective.
I mean, in theory, you could go to something like a Chromebook or something even lighter weight than this, but, I mean, not saying we should, but in theory, it's, because it's cloud-based, most of the applications could operate in just a browser-based environment,
What's nice too now is that because we're on these cloud-based solutions, it used to be this was sort of at the beginning of COVID. If I was working from home, I'd have to have a VPN connection to be able to get into anything I was working on at work, and honestly, a lot of times it didn't work. And now we don't have to have that. We can get directly into our files through signing in. It makes it a ton easier for us to be able to work off-site if we're not physically in the office.
And the reason why I asked is because, and just because of geography and today's modern world, right? I mean, we're very much subject to things like, for example, tornadoes, right? Tornadoes are a very real thing, could happen around here, could wipe out City Hall. So what happens if that happens, right? And, having an offsite, if our data is in, Massachusetts, that's great because we could still connect, log in. I mean, dealing with the mess here is one thing, but at least all our financial systems, bookkeeping, all that stuff, it's safe and we're good to go. Presumably there's other systems in addition to your ERP, like police, fire, they have other systems that we also need to make sure also have redundancy too, so we can continue continuity of operations. So those are other ones, but, at least the core business that, we need from day to day from a financial perspective, we can continue operating. There's also things like ransomware, for example, and that's something that's also very insidious and something we need to be.
They actually send us fake emails every once in a while to see if we bite on them. I bit on one once, and that was the last time I bit on it. It was a fake one.
Yeah.
But boy, mine looked real that they caught me on. I go, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But it's good. I mean, it's one
Yeah.
of those things that's I'd rather bite in the fake email and then learn something from it, so we don't bite in the real one.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yep.
good. So good stuff. So thank you very much for, doing some research into that.
Yep.
Appreciate it. And, thank you to the IT team who often goes unheralded for all the.
I guarantee
The
you,
unsung
not
heroes
one,
of the city.
not one word of that did I type.
I'm sure of that.
I mean, being in the IT world, I mean, it's like the IT, a lot of the IT guys I know, always feel like, gosh, when was the last time anyone said, thank you for keeping my email running, I mean.
If it goes wrong.
If it goes wrong, we're gonna complain.
Exactly, when it doesn't work, everybody knows, right?
Yeah.
So thank you to the IT guys, because just a shout out to all of them, because, guys and gals, because it's a very, a thankless job sometimes, so. Yep, so that's all I got, thank you.
Okay.
All right, anyone else on the bills? Motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Grau to pay the bills. Discussion. Hearing none. Elise?
Councilmember Hatfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Yes.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Councilmember Grau?
Yes.
Mayor Winchell?
Yes. All right, moves us to other business. Councilmember Grau.
I always have one thing. I mentioned that I frequently read comments on Facebook, which sometimes is a dangerous thing to do, right? I don't know what gets said. But I appreciate the article from the Herald, about Cooper's and, reading kind of through everything with that. And, I've known, I think the council's known really what, that the city desires, and feel that there needs to be a grocery store in downtown, and I think that's good. And so I just appreciated a little bit of the press of that, because it's easy to point the finger at cities when businesses leave. I think that's that's an easier thing to do, and it happens. Trust, everyone sees that, right? So I just thought it was good, because I think it's one of those unique situations where I fully support what we've been trying to work with and do and support, because it's valuable. And the other thing I learned is the meat department is the best.
It is good.
That is the best. It's just interesting to read through comments and also just like the people's comments about, the food and the variety, but also just the connections. Like, that was my first job, or yep, when I first moved here, it's like, that's that story. You talk about, we spend time talking about a feel in the city, right? Those are things that help shape what a city feels like.
Well, I think that leads to a good point. There's a lot of, like we touched on it just even earlier, small businesses, and these are folks that live in the community. They support the community, whether it's sponsoring different programs, or, if they have families and they're involved in activities in the community. And like you said, that, giving jobs and other things. So, they are the fabric of this community. They're definitely part of that. And, sometimes it even gets lost, like bigger businesses even, they might be a franchise. And that franchise owner is most likely someone that lives locally in this community. So I think that's important to recognize as well, as we're kind of talking about businesses. But
Yeah, so we just got back the letter of intent, signed the letter of intent from the Klein family today. So that means we're gonna commence ordering an appraisal for the property, which that typically takes 2 months, maybe, to get an appraisal done. And then we'll work from there to develop a purchase agreement for it. So I think you have all parties coming together wanting to accomplish the same thing, which I think is good. So I hopefully just keeps them moving forward.
I got a couple things. I was wondering, there's a lot of questions about what a land trust is, if you could maybe just do a land trust 101.
Yep.
And for myself, it's been a long time since we've done anything with a land trust.
Yeah, and the land trust, we originally set it up as an affordable housing tool back in 2003, right around there. We started it at the city, and then eventually it migrated over to the CDA to have them administer it, because they had staff that were better geared to do it. But basically what a land trust is the land trust is a nonprofit, and it goes in and it basically works with the either the homeowner or the business owner, and the land trust purchases the land and owns the land forever. And then basically the building owner owns the building, and then has a very low cost, very long-term, it's a 98-year lease. It's renewable one, so it can go for 196 years. And, basically it's $25 a month. It's something very small. It's basically meant to take the cost of the land out of it, but it's also meant to have the land trust have some ability to have some control. If, like, for instance, when we did affordable housing, one of the reasons that we created it was because, the city was putting in subsidies and reducing road widths and all these different things that created affordable housing. And the only people who ended up getting the benefit from that were the first-time homebuyers. Because they would earn all the equity in the property and then they'd take it with them, and then the house wasn't affordable anymore. And that's fine. But it was, really the goal of the council at that point was to say, we don't want to lose everything we've put this effort into. Let's have something that stays permanently affordable. On the commercial side, it really gets into less about affordability and it gets more into how do you keep those things in the community that you think are really important for the fabric of the community. In this case, it's how do you not create a food desert in downtown Chaska when you have a lot of housing around that relies on being able to walk to that to be able to buy groceries. And so let's say in the future that the Coopers say, okay, we're done with the grocery business. Well, the land trust still owns the land. And the land trust has the ability to be able to go in and sort of have some controls over who the next person coming into that business is. And so, I mean, we talk about it all the time. You just got done talking about it, how a business can leave downtown and the first person people blame is the city. We don't really have any control. We have no control to be able to say who that next person going in. In a land trust situation, there's skin in the game. And so the land trust does have the ability to have some kind of ability to say who is that next owner of the business. Ideally, you're trying to bring in the same type of business, and if you're keeping those costs lower by taking the land cost out, the hope is you can attract more people to the table.
So one of the challenges was the land. So is the building itself actually part of that land trust, or is it just the land?
So the building is owned by would be owned by, in this case, it'd be owned by the Cooper children will have a LLC that owns the building. They'll lease that building back to Gary and Sandy, and then the land trust will lease the land to the building.
Okay. Because I remember that there was part of the ownership was part of the challenge there with the pieces before, so now this should help this.
Yeah, and it's actually, to me, gonna really help us with more than just that. I think it's gonna help us finish out the redevelopment of that area over there. For instance, like the parking lot, we're looking at having, the land trust doesn't wanna own the parking lot. We're looking at having the city retain ownership of that parking lot and making it a public parking lot. And then being able to square off the site that we own to the south, that's just north of Nicolay Bank. And how do we combine that then with the site that's right behind it, which is the KFC site, and look at a bigger site that is a squared off site that could be redeveloped? Looking at that type of stuff. So I think there's benefits beyond just the grocery store that could happen here.
So with the land trust, CDA, whatever, owning that land, are there still taxes on it, or does that come off the tax rolls?
No, there is taxes. It's, I forget how the taxes work. Is
They
it just
pay-
on the building?
No, they pay both the taxes for the land and the building.
The land trust?
No.
The building owner
The building owner.
does.
Oh, the building owner does.
Yep. So it still stays on the tax roll, so you don't lose anything there.
Okay. This is just, I know, I remember years ago when we talked about it, that doing this with a business was a little different. So it's a little bit of a different twist than we're used to, so it just, but again, that goes back to, us knowing the need of that grocery store for our downtown, how important it is to put that kind of effort into it.
One of the challenges with commercial businesses is it's really hard to find dollars that support that. We've been talking about this for a long time. And the only thing that allowed this to happen was the fact that the legislature extended those TIF eligibility laws. It was, you guys, you may not even remember, but you guys took action at the end of December to basically allow excess dollars from other districts to be able to come in and be used in other areas. Up until that point, there was no grants, you couldn't use the TIF dollars, you couldn't use all this stuff, so there was no dollars to fund it. By doing that, that provided the dollars to be able to fund this.
So it's not, it's not really CDA money then?
No, it'd be city tax increment dollars that would go into it. And then we'd use that then to purchase it. Now, part of it is we're gonna have to have an agreement with the land trust to make sure that our long-term interest is to make sure that desirable use is there and that we have some control over it. So there'll be some agreement between us and the CDA that basically says if that ever changes, we need to be part of the approval process for that.
And again, you said now, we're gonna get, an appraisal on the land in the building or just the land?
Land in the building. Yep.
And then, now, I had thought that there was already another person that bought that property. Did they just not follow through with
They had a
it?
purchase agreement.
Purchase agreement, yeah.
Yep.
I know that there was talk and they wanted to do something, but you and I talked, they didn't wanna be the business that took out the local grocery store.
They also found some pretty significant issues that made that what they had looked at doing is actually taking down the building and then putting up a multiple-story building. Remember that used to be the brickyards. And underneath that parking lot is,
Holes?
no, it's like thick concrete. And I don't know if it was like the foundations for like
Well, there was-
kilns or something.
Well, there was long warehouse buildings there,
Okay,
and I don't know if they had big footings in there because we stored equipment in there.
yeah. Well, it in essence made the site,
I'm sorry. You aged yourself right there.
back in 1900,
Wait a minute, wasn't Cooper's like around for 100 years?
Not there. Jeez. I'm not gonna share any more knowledge with you guys. You pick on me all the time.
it made
Just
it,
because I'm
econ-
50,
made it
just
really
because I'm
easy.
50,
it made it economically infeasible for them to really look at the
Doing the
site.
math in my head.
Yeah. Well, the brickyards haven't been in existence for 90 years.
there, I'll really tell you, there's one decline in Donahue's storage facility. All right, I'm not saying another word. Anything else on Land Trust 101? Anyone else have a question?
And that's all I have, so I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's right, you
I
started.
started it, it was me.
Good job.
All right.
There was another question I had, but I already lost it now. All right, you're good? All right, Councilor Juan?
Just a couple things. Let's see, so March 23rd, this is this Thursday, at the Chaska Community Center from 4 to 7 is the Highway 41 and 10 Angler Project public, or a project update for public meeting, getting input for the Highway 4110 project. So if you have any interest in what's going on in Angler and 41 in that intersection, and also the Angler construction that's being planned, that's a great session to attend. So that's this Thursday. And then May 6th is Christmas in May. Question around that. So are we still taking applications for homes that need work? Or
No,
are
we just
good to
closed
go?
that
We
on
just closed
Friday.
it, Okay.
Yep.
And so at this point, do we have enough, or we feel like we have a good slate? So-
Yeah, Mary and I are getting together our Wednesday to sort of filter. We ended up getting, like, the last day, I think we got like 8 or 9 applications on the last day. So, so we're getting together.
Did I ever get back to you?
Yes, I got an application from them.
Oh,
Yep.
good.
Actually, that's a good one, too. So,
Well, I mean, if there's somebody that qualifies for that project, that, you know, he's a Vietnam vet and, just got a lot of health issues that he's dealing with.
yeah, I actually just got that today, so, but we have some decisions to make. So we're gonna sort of sort through them, and then next week, we're doing we do initial inspections of the houses, to basically go through and look at, okay, what is it they want? A lot of times, what they want is not enough to keep us busy, so we suggest things to them and go through and sort of come up with a game plan with what exactly we're gonna do for work there.
Okay, sounds good. And then 2 quick questions, or one of them's quick, one of them may not be. So I know every once in a while, this always comes up, every once in a while this comes up, people ask, like, so what's going on at the KFC site? So speaking of which, right next door to what we were just talking about, have we had any word in that?
Well, not specifically on KFC, but I will tell you that I just got done talking about sort of the lot north of Bank Nicolay. And we have talked with somebody that has a potential interest in that area over there. I can't really say what it is, but it's probably about 3 weeks ago or so, we talked with a group that, if they were interested, I think would be a very good use, so.
Okay, sounds good. And then the last one is that, I got an email and, I forwarded it to Brian about this pothole repairs, and this is related to Weston Ridge. And, one of the things that I know that we do is we have a kind of a stage schedule for like doing overlays and then to do the reconstruction or overlays, seal coating overlays and then the
I
reconstruction.
think Western Ridge is actually on the list this year for
Okay.
overlay.
Right, so that's part of the question, and then, so, it's one of those things that, I gotta think that there's some that are probably coming up, but not this year.
Yeah.
But with all the, with the weather and the winter that we had, I'm guessing there's probably some roads that have a significantly worse than usual.
Yep.
Probably, impact, and so, what's our sense at this point, it's pretty early, about, is it gonna be something we may need to address from a budget perspective, or?
I don't think so. I
Rusty?
mean, the good thing is there's only so much work you can do in the day. And so you start switching your efforts from one thing to another. And so, I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna be a budgetary impact, but they're definitely gonna be more busy than usual.
Yeah, because there's gonna be a lot of work just from the weather, if nothing else, that kind of created a lot of road issues.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, sounds good. That is all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Can you talk?
Yes, I'm recovered. Woo, I thought maybe you'd be really mean and pick on me next or whatever, but, the only thing I, have is, the upcoming, actually I have two things. The upcoming, open house for the Highway 10, 41 Highway 10 project. And that is this, Thursday, the 23rd, from 4 to 7 PM. And that's at the Brick City Banquet Room at the Chaska Community Center.
We're laughing because you said that.
You just said that?
That was when you were
All of
laughing.
it. I was thinking, where's this going?
You know what, in my head, I was thinking, I can't believe that Councilmember Wong didn't mention this.
He did.
You nailed
You
it.
did in my, okay, sorry. So that was my
Yeah,
bad.
one thing that nobody meant, there's presentations at 4:30 and 6 o'clock, I think.
Well, I was gonna
All right, we'll get there. We've been
No.
waiting.
So there is presentations at 4:30 and 6 o'clock. No. But yeah, just to inform the public, obviously, and they've been informed twice, so I can't say you don't know if you watch this meeting. The other thing is, it was really fun to get in the mail what's trending in Chaska. I don't know if any of you guys saw the postcard that got sent out, but there's a lot of really great information in there about, upcoming Coffee with the Cops, Downtown 41 construction project ramping up, the Christmas in May, the roundabout, the Park and Rec guide, and then just some ordinance kind of FYIs. So just really, I just thought it was great.
Who'd it
just
come
to see
from?
that from us.
You didn't get your
Well,
mail?
I didn't get one.
I got one.
I
You
will.
Yeah.
just didn't look at it.
You just didn't look at it. But,
I'll look.
but,
I never saw it.
yeah, I just thought it was very informative, laid out really nicely, so.
We threw it
great
at the end
job.
of your driveway in the big snow pile.
Probably.
Yeah,
I'll catch it
put
the
it right
next
on
blower.
top, right there.
Wow. Came today?
No.
No,
Last week.
came last week,
Oh,
so,
look, I don't know, I never saw it.
well, then there you go. There's more opportunities. But anyways, just thought that was really nice and stuck out in my purview at least. So, just wanted to mention it, and that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Hatfield.
Yes, the Highway 41, no, I'm kidding. Coffee with a Cop is this Thursday at Red Bench at 9 AM. And then the only other thing that hasn't been mentioned is, or I don't think it has, but I'm gonna mention it even if it has. We had our city council department head retreat last week, and I thought it was just a good time that not everyone always realizes we have this time together, and this time it was 2 full days talking about, strategy for the city and building community and what does that look like going into the future. And so often you hear us talking about the here and now and what we're doing today and what we have in the next couple months and maybe the next year, but not everyone realizes that we're thinking several years out, and we're thinking, even further than that, and talking about it and spending a lot of time. So just first and foremost, thank you to the department heads who came prepared to talk about those things and put so much of their heart and knowledge into talking about Chaska 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and fellow council members too for taking time off work to come together. It's really important work, and again, people don't realize we do it, but it is just so important. So it was a really nice time we spent together, and I'm excited about things we have coming up immediately, and I'm excited about Chaska 5 years from now too. So that's it.
Awesome, thank you. That's a good summary. I had that as one of the things to discuss, and that our retreats have been very, very valuable to this community. A lot of things have been initiated out of those, and we've moved forward. So they're always rewarding when they're done. They're tiring. You don't realize how tired you get, and you don't think you're doing anything, but they're a lot when you're all done. But yeah, so I'm just saying, we look forward to what we're seeing coming in the future and what we're preparing for and looking forward to. So lots to do. Like we said earlier, there's never a dull moment around here, right, Elise?
Exactly.
All right, Elise, you got anything?
I just mentioned, and it was in Matt's update, about the Human Rights Commission for Women's History Month is still taking just kind of nominations of women who live and work in the community so that we can feature them. And Kevin's doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work for that, and you'll start seeing some of those profiles go up here shortly.
Is that something we're doing then on our webpage, or is that something that's gonna go up in the community center, like in the hallway there?
Yep, so it'll be on our website, on social media. Kevin, if you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, right now it's gonna be a social media campaign, so that's the plan for that. If we end up getting more than we can share there, we will put a collection of them on the website.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Jake?
I don't have anything.
Matt?
Big thank you on the strategic planning retreat. I mean, I know you guys, we're all here. You guys have to make time out of your busy schedule to be here. So I really appreciate that, especially for 2 full days. I mean, you can see every time we get to the end of that, there's we look up on the clock and there's 15 minutes left, and it feels like we still have 2 hours of work left.
We did.
Yeah.
You guys.
And
We were over every day.
Yeah. But the one thing, and I don't know why I haven't done this, but one thing I'm gonna do this time around that I haven't done in the past is actually take that report that we do and make it into a presentation, sort of like Elise did with 41 tonight, and show it at a council meeting. And it'll be something that we tape so that we can have, so we'll probably do a little intro, sort of like I do with the budget, beyond the budget thing, we'll intro and then be able to guide people to that presentation so that they can see a full report on what were the things we discussed and where did we come to. Because, you guys both said it, sometimes people don't know we're doing this. They should know we're doing this. Because at the end of the day, it's the vision. It's where we want to go, and people should know that.
It's exciting too.
Yeah, it is exciting. Yep, so, the only other thing I have is I am not here at the next council meeting, so you get Elise all to yourself, so.
Probably be a good.
You'll be in much better hands.
Good, smooth run meeting then.
Yes. That's it.
All right, thank you. Just a few things, we've talked a lot about 41 and all the different things, but we really, at least I don't recall it because I've been talking about it a lot. I don't think we did it here, But City Square Park is also going to be under construction this year as well. It's been on our radar to be done the last few years, but we kept saying, let's do it with 41. Then we only lose one season versus 141's under construction, and then we do the park. So not only with all the other craziness that's happening, City Square Park, the gazebo is going to be rebuilt. Is it physically torn down or rebuilt? I know that.
We're gonna come back in a work session with you guys, because I just shared this with the mayor today. We had reports come back from sort of the design group that we've been working with. There are a number of agencies that have authority over that park. And so, we obviously have to repair the things that aren't, the gazebo's in terrible shape right now. We need to deal with the sidewalk paths. There's stuff that we need to deal with there, but there's also gonna be some significant limitations on what we can do. We're just getting that stuff sort of wrapped up and together, and we'll be bringing that back to you guys for a work session to sort of go over and talk to you about, here are the things that basically we're gonna be allowed to do. I do think it's gonna address the most pertinent issues that we have in that park, like dealing with the gazebo, like dealing with the paths, the fencing and all that type of stuff that's not in good condition. But there are going to be limitations, and we're not gonna be able to do just whatever we want there.
So just.
Like as simple as planting a tree. If we
Yeah,
have to plant a new tree, we have to get permission from multiple agencies.
yeah, it's just disturbing the ground is gonna be an issue.
So so even the replacing an existing tree, is that sort of, so even if like restoration of existing, structures or features of that, we still have to get permission?
If it's ground up, and it's historically accurate, then it's less issue than if it's ground down.
Okay, so I'm guessing that some of them are related to the historic value of the, and historic nature of the park, which is the challenge, right?
Yep.
And also, like the burial mounds, things like that.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. But we're sort of coming up with what we're gonna recommend to you guys. And again, I think it's gonna get to the things that, it's gonna get to the things that keep the park well-maintained, which, as I look at everything, to me, that's the most important thing, is to have a well-maintained park over there, because that's sort of the central symbol of our community, and to have a gazebo that somebody can lean on and the arm falls off, that's not good.
During the tree lighting ceremony, I had to stand over this hole so nobody fell in it. So it was sad, so
Yeah.
it definitely needs it.
So
I'm envisioning how you stand over a hole, but
Well, I didn't,
I understood what you said. Yes, okay. We're gonna have a short meeting and we all got loony tonight, but it's all right.
Okay, so one quick question about that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so with regards to the park, when we have, when we actually look at like what we're doing, to restore, to, make changes to the park, one of the things that my wife and I were talking about yesterday, actually just coincidentally, was that the burial mounds, right? I think that, are they marked permanently or are they not marked? Because the reason why I asked is because
Yeah.
I think that when we first moved to Chaska, we didn't know what those were, and then, it's like, wow, this is kind of interesting. We went to the park, and then later on we saw that people were like really upset because, oh my gosh, they're sacred. And it's like, oh my gosh, if I knew they were sacred, I wouldn't, because I want to respect the people who value their ancestry there, right? Completely, sensitive to that. But, for people who are new to the community or just visiting, if they're not marked, it's like hard to be respectful for something you don't know is something they should be revering.
This came up back in, you are in the Human
Yep.
Rights Commission, so
I
that
was
would have
like,
been
oh,
back
I know
in
this conversation.
2004, 2005. There's actually limitations on what we can do to actually designate those mounds. And so, I've had plenty of people ask me, why don't we put fences around that?
Yep.
We got told specifically, do not put fences around that because you have to penetrate the ground to be able to do it. you know, used to be a monument that was up on top of the big one, mound when I first came to town, and they're like, "You get that off of there." And so there's some pretty significant restrictions that are even put on that, so.
Which is ironic because, you know, because if someone comes from Eden Prairie to visit and then they might just go jumping and playing on the mound and doing things that are completely disrespectful, completely out of ignorance.
Well,
But yet,
one of the
you know,
things that at least back at that time, what was talked about is that's the whole reason for the temporary roping that goes up during the festivals is what they focused on when they looked at it was what were the time periods that the most people were in the park, that you had the most, you know, other times they sort of looked at it and said, well, there's just not many people in this park generally for big, and so it was less of a concern, and they really didn't want to see disturbance of them. But the issues aren't just mounds here. The issues are also the type of material that we use for the trails, like landscape pavers are not historic treatment of sidewalks. Concrete is a historic treatment of sidewalks. You know, back when the gazebo was originally rebuilt, what, 83, 84?
I'm not saying nothing.
Yeah. Well, you were here, so you'd know. But when it was originally done, if you take off sort of the outside layer, the original, like, base of the gazebo that was originally there is still there. And they're saying that that still needs to stay. And so whatever we do has to incorporate that back into the design of whatever we do to rebuild it. So there's just a lot of restrictions we have to follow.
But if like there's like boards that are rotted away or termite damage or things, I would assume that we should be able to replace those.
Yes.
Because otherwise the structure is not going to be sound.
Yep.
Right.
I'm talking about more of the actual base. You know, when you go up the stairs and there's the, whatever shape it is, round, that base is original.
Right, but then
Everything else is not.
right, but I mean,
Yeah.
but even then that base, I mean, presumably if like there's like boards or a piece of that that's
It's actually,
rotted away,
most of it's concrete
it's
underneath.
concrete
Yeah.
underneath. Okay,
Yep.
so then we don't have that
Yeah.
issue. It's like it's mostly concrete plus that decorative part around
Yep.
there. But I presume that there's ways that we could repair it so it looks original. It has to look original to that,
Yep,
like it was. Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
but that's, to me, this is an important enough park that we wanted to come back in an actual work session and talk about it.
So, I mean, we're to the point, plans already need to be kind of drawn up on that. We gotta put it out to bids pretty soon.
Yeah, there's not as many things that we're gonna be able to do as you think.
Well, right, but still, we gotta, it's not that as much as
Yeah.
it is getting a contract.
Yeah, yep.
And, you know, so, all right. So how, do you have an idea when you're thinking? When you
Sometime
thinking?
probably.
In April,
What
or-
I'd like to do is I'd like to shoot for that second meeting in April.
Okay. All right. Speaking of meetings, April 3rd, April 11th, no, not 17th, I mean. Our meetings, we're back on schedule. Christmas in May we touched on. Today's the happy first day of spring.
It was nice
Isn't this
out.
the day we're supposed to go sit in the park and
Yeah.
It was
enjoy
great.
it? I went out snowmobiling, I don't know. What else do you do on the first day of spring?
Sun feels good.
Yeah,
That's nice.
great
The
spring
sun did
activity,
feel
right.
The snow's melting, but we'll get some more tonight,
This
right?
weekend, it felt like December.
Maybe a little. Who knows?
Just a question, speaking of construction and stuff. So Cardinal Street in front of is it Crown of Glory Church? That's starting to really show a lot of wear now. Is that something that would be on a street reconstruct from all the construction?
That might
happened?
actually have been part of the development agreement for that, for the senior neighborhood.
So when that gets done, that there would be
Some kind
at
of
least
repair done to
a mill
it.
and overlay, because
Yeah.
it's, I noticed.
I
went in
think
there
that
the
was
other
part of
day.
the development agreement,
Okay.
because everybody sort of knew that that was really the route that you had to go
Well, that's all you
in.
could use until
Yeah.
now, where there's
Yeah.
some more, but really construction traffic isn't supposed to go.
But I
through
see it
there.
every morning when I come to work. There's still gravel trucks going down in that road.
Oh, yeah, I mean, now they can't, because the road restrictions are on.
Yeah.
That's another thing, road restrictions are on earlier this year than we've seen in a lot of years, well, snow on the ground yet. Yeah, that stops that, but they preload a whole bunch of sand in there but they have all that available for them as they build and they don't during road restriction time, so. So, yeah, they do a lot of hauling in and out, so. Lastly, just want to touch, Chaska girls basketball, had a super season and then, had an unfortunate loss in the playoffs to go to state. But you still can't take anything away of what they accomplished through the year. And I believe, did anybody else see this? Did Coach Seifert, was she Coach of the Year? I'm not sure. I thought I read something, but I don't have it for sure, but I thought she got some coach award.
Yeah, they were number 1 seed for.
Yep. they were.
Yeah, that was I'm sure it was a very tough loss, but nonetheless, congratulations on a spectacular season, and, you know, I always tell them, you gotta hold your head high, because you still had a great year no matter what, but nobody ever listens, because it doesn't feel that way. It's, all I remember is that one loss, so, but they had a tremendous year, and I think they have a strong core coming back again next year, so.
Yep.
So, more things to look forward to, so. That is it for me. Anyone else left on a last call? Otherwise, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hatfield.
So moved. Second, sorry. Second.
By Councilmember Grah to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. We adjourn. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us. Longer than I thought it would be. Hope you got a beer in.